Did you know that the average savings rate in Japan is 39.3%? The average Japanese household saves 39.3% of their personal income every single year. They are the number one savers in the world. Now you compare that to the US, where Americans are only saving about 3.5% of their personal income. 39 in Japan and 3.5 in America. There is a huge discrepancy in the savings rates. How is it that Japanese save so much money and Americans don't? Well, we are here to divulge the secret. Because Christina and I lived in Japan for 8 years. We got to witness it firsthand how the Japanese are able to save so much of their personal income. And on this video, we are gonna reveal the secret to saving more money Japanese style. Hey guys, it's Amon
and Christina
from Our Rich Journey. On today's video, we are gonna share with you the saving tips that we learned while living in Japan for over 8 years. These are the things that we observed firsthand in how the Japanese are able to have such a high savings rate. And as personal finance enthusiasts, as fire folks, as self-made millionaires, we have picked up on some things and we are going to share the lessons learned.
So having a high savings rate is really important for someone who is pursuing financial independence and who wants to retire early. So if you are struggling with really trying to figure out how you can save more of your income every single month so you can invest more, there are some things that we can learn from how the average Japanese person can save so much of their income. So it all really boils down to cultural habits, social norms, and strong financial discipline. But let's break that down even more.
So let's talk about cultural influence first. And the thing that is often talked about in Japan is savings as a virtue. There is a concept in Japan called Chochiku, which means saving and frugality. Now it is deeply embedded in the social fabric of Japan. It's not just a habit, but a core value that signifies self-discipline and responsibility, where saving is viewed as a virtue and people often prioritize saving over consumption.
So in Japan, being financially prepared is really seen as a reflection of personal character. And this cultural emphasis on saving rather than spending is passed down from generation to generation. So people really learn about this virtue of saving money at an early age in Japan. So this is the first real takeaway. So unlike other cultures that value spending and consumption, Japan really values modesty and prudence, and this naturally translates into a higher savings rate.
But let's talk about Kakeibo. Kakeibo is really the art of budgeting. For hundreds of years, the Japanese have been budgeting probably way before everyone else has. And in Japan, this is truly an art. So Kakeibo is a traditional Japanese budgeting practice that dates back over 100 years. It's a manual method where families write down all of their income, their expenses, and they categorize them and they set monthly savings goals. I love that the Japanese do this the old-fashioned way, manually with pen and paper. And I think by doing this, it really emphasizes identifying how you are spending your money. Because in this day and age, we say we may be budgeting because we're using an app or some other software, but the reality is sometimes those apps take all of the hard work out of the process of budgeting. You think they're connected to your credit card, to all these things, and you never really dig down deep to create that budget.
So culturally in Japan, the act of manually writing down all of your expenses and reflecting on them really fosters a sense of mindfulness, and it helps individuals consciously make better financial decisions. So the takeaway from this is that if you are adopting a similar practice, this could help you become more aware of where your money is going and also make conscious decisions to really understand where you need to cut back on spending with unnecessary expenses. The next thing is that Japan is a culture that really embraces minimalism and mindfulness. I'm sure many of you are aware of Marie Kondo and her process of minimalism. It really encourages people to own fewer items and really focus on what truly brings them joy.
I love this because this is mindful consumption. Minimalism is a secret sauce when it comes to financial independence. The less you own, the less money you have to spend maintaining those things. If you are able to live in a smaller house with less things, if you have a smaller footprint, of course, that is going to result in less resources that you have to spend to maintain those things.
Now, in Japan, this is really culturally significant because minimalism isn't just about decluttering. In Japan, it's really a philosophy of contentment and intentional living. So again, this leads people to spend less on material goods, which allows them to have a higher savings rate. So in terms of takeaways, if you can focus on valuing experiences over possessions, you can actually reduce impulsive spending and focus on your long-term financial security.
The next secret sauce to saving in Japan is this community and family-based saving. You know, in Japan, there is a strong sense of family and community responsibility. We know this firsthand because we had friends and family that lived by these rules. You would see younger generations often living with their parents for longer. And when someone lives with their parents a little longer, they can reduce living expenses, which allows them to save more money.
I totally agree with that. And I think actually, in fact, in Japan, it's not uncommon for people to have community savings groups. So families or friends, they'll pool their money together to buy larger purchases. So the takeaway is that Japan has a high emphasis on family and community-based savings. So these collaborative savings practices create a built-in support system and actual accountability. So this makes it easier for people to maintain higher rates in Japan.
I love that accountability piece. That is so important when it comes to saving because if you are able to set goals as a group, one another can help each other reach those goals. You can say, hey, you haven't put in enough money this month in order for the family to reach the goal. If we could do this in the US, people could get a lot further when it comes to saving, but also achieving their goals. Families working together stronger can help one another get to where they need to go.
So next is Japan's emphasis on emergency preparedness. Now, if you are familiar with Japan, it can be hit by a lot of natural disasters. So things like earthquakes or typhoons. So Japan has this long ingrained culture of saving for these types of emergencies.
So this is culturally significant because this emphasis on saving for unforeseen events ensures that the Japanese families have financial buffers, leading to a naturally higher savings rate. I love this preparedness because so many of us will encounter a disaster of some sort, a natural disaster or just an emergency in our lives, and we won't have the emergency money in place to address those issues. But the Japanese are really doing this well.
So next, with Japanese culture, they actually do not like carrying debt. There is actually a deep-seated aversion to debt in Japan. So instead of financing larger purchases like a car, for example, the average Japanese person prefers to save up their money and pay all cash for something like that. So culturally, because Japanese people have this aversion to debt, they naturally have that higher savings rate. So the takeaway with this is if you can avoid debt, especially high interest debt, you can significantly improve your financial security and also your savings rate. And finally, the last thing that I see that we are definitely not doing in the United States compared to Japan is that Japan really focuses on financial literacy and education at a very young young age. So they emphasize financial literacy in schools, and children are actually taught in Japan the importance of budgeting and saving. And again, this comes at a very young age in Japan. Now, culturally, I think this is so important because if you're learning about saving and budgeting at a young age, this translates into your saving and investments and how you manage money when you're an adult. And you can see the stark difference again between the savings rate of someone who is living in Japan and who learns about budgeting and saving at a young age versus the average American who doesn't get those things taught to them in school.
So the takeaway really is if we can promote financial literacy at a younger age in the United States, we can also increase our savings rate. Maybe one day we'll have a savings rate higher than Japan. I would just love to see Americans saving 39.3% of their income. I think we can get there, but I'm an optimistic person. And so we hope that we have given you guys some food for thought and that everyone can start moving in a better direction financially by starting with increasing their savings rate. And so if you guys have liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and join the journey.